I didn't realize I could create the reality I wanted, and I could be who I wanted, and I could have courage to do these things that I've always wanted to do. And here you are doing them and writing about them with your real name.
Welcome, Tucker, to Unleash the Knowledge's podcast, Everyday Extraordinary, where it's my job to push the message that we all have extraordinary capabilities within us that simply need to be channeled and activated. I do this by having amazing conversations with everyday extraordinary people like yourself. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So before we get into questions, I just want to highlight a bit of your background for folks that are tuning in. Nowadays, you're spending your time as the co-founder of Scribe Media,
yeah.
Scribe Media. Okay, great. Where you're working with authors, publishing, marketing their books. We'll dive into that a bit in the sense that you just give away tons of free value, and obviously your business model is built on where you come in and do the work. So it's awesome. But before that, you were this writer and this establisher of a new genre called Fratire. I got your first book here. Right? I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, and you got two other books out as well. Assholes Finish First and Hilarity Ensues. Super cool stuff. Tons of success there. We're going to talk about the process of working with Ryan Holiday and Tim Ferriss too on just being a best-time seller and what it takes. But I do want to commend you for the main, I think, accolade that you're one of 4 writers in the nonfiction category to sit on the illustrious throne of the New York Times bestseller #1 list 3 times for 3 different books. So,
no, I had 3 books on at one time. So there's been a bunch that I've had 3 books on, but me, Brene Brown, Malcolm Gladwell, and Michael Lewis, I think, are the only ones who've had 3 books on at once.
Okay, so that's the claim to fame. It's not just having 3.
No, there's a bunch that have had 3 or 4 on. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, awesome. I love that. Super cool. All right, so first question, I usually kick off with most guests in the sense that I can introduce you, I could put your life into your own words, but I always like to ask the guest, how would you describe yourself?
Oh, man. In what context? For what reason? It totally depends. It's very dependent.
So if you had to encapsulate your life up until this point, a couple sentences, maybe your accomplishments, who you are as a person, what you're up to today.
I mean, I think I'd say something very similar to what you just said. Like, it wouldn't be all that different, right? I'd focus on the books I'd written, the company I started. I'd probably talk a little bit more maybe about my family, but like that's more important to me than it is to other people. Maybe part of the transformation I've been on, the journey, but I'm not even sure how to talk about that out of context. It's kind of like, it's like one of those things where it's like coming into a movie halfway. It's sometimes hard to catch up, but yeah, I mean, of the external things, that's probably what I'd focus on.
Okay. Awesome. I love it. So 3 books pushed out, all about your blog, about this lifestyle you were living. When I highlight one book, I usually ask, what's the #1 takeaway to gain? But I'm curious for you, this through line of the work you've written, what you're hoping people to capture. I know it's kind of like a past life for you, but do you have thoughts on any takeaways, positive, that you would want folks to gain when they read your books?
A bunch. So like I kind of have 2 sets or 2 careers, right? There was my first books, there were 4 of them that were, the New York Times said I invented a new literary genre called Fratire, right? Yeah. Which is funny because I wasn't in a fraternity in college, and the books aren't satire. They are comedy. They're funny, but they're not satire. And so typical New York Times, right? Like it literally got no part of it right. But anyway, so I wrote 4 Fratire books, and all were bestsellers and all did really well. And they were, honestly, man, like I wrote them to be funny. Like they're meant, the primary goal is for people to read them and laugh. And because I just wrote about all of the dumb stuff we do in our 20s, drinking, partying, hooking up, throwing up, just being a fool. Like I did all of that, and then I wrote about it, and then I kind of got famous for writing about it, and then the last book's about being famous for writing about this stuff, and part of this stuff, like all the weird situations that came up. But the main goal is to laugh. Now it's funny though, man. Like I wrote those when I was starting at 27 till about 33, 34. And like reading it now, I can see at the time I knew that obviously there were layers. It wasn't just comedy because for comedy to be funny, there has to be truth to it, right? And so there was a lot of deep truth and a lot of emotional stuff and a lot of honesty and vulnerability. It was just not hit people in the face with it, right? And I can see it really clearly now. It's funny. Like there's actually a lot more than I thought. And that was actually a thing that shocked me. But even when it was, those things were really selling, they were in every airport and selling like hotcakes. I get a lot of email from people talking about how much my books changed their life, and which was honestly shocking to me because like I wrote them. My book started as emails to my friends, like my 9 friends from law school. I would write them funny stories and they would laugh, and that was it. And then a lot of people took, men and women, young and old, took a ton from it. And the main thing that there were some people who were like, oh, I didn't know you could party like this. And I'm like, well, you would have figured it out when you got to your 20s. There were like younger people who were like,
Yeah.
I didn't know you could, do all this stuff. It's like, yeah, you'll figure that out.
Yeah.
But most of the people who took meaningful stuff, it was around kind of what you led off the show with. Like, I didn't realize I could create the reality I wanted, and I could be who I wanted, and I could have courage to do these things that I've always wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And here you are doing them and writing about them with your real name. And like, because there's so much, it's not as much now, but it's 10 years ago, it was way more, even though there's still quite a bit, a lot of shame and guilt around basic things like sex, like having fun,
Mm-hmm.
like just the simple act of saying, I'm not going to do what other people expect me to do or want me to do. I'm going to do the things I want to do, is like, you would think, I thought that was really basic. I was wrong. It's a revolutionary act in a lot of ways. Like I really didn't understand how revolutionary on some level it was. And like I learned that really from my readers who were like, at least the ones who were like, this is transformative. You taught me all this sort of stuff, which was not the goal, but I see how they got it from it and how it impacted them. And I literally had a message today. I get emails every day about this.
Yeah.
Like, thank you so much. Your books helped me so much in ways that I never intended. And then of course I have plenty of people who are like, oh, they were super funny. And I was down and depressed and I read them and I laughed and I got happy. And that's all they took. Cool. Great. That was the point.
Right. And I mean, you touched upon a bunch of things. I think the last thing you said is that it hits everybody differently, but it's the matter of putting the good work out, and you'll find out as people get back to you. But the other piece is, and I've been big on Instagram. That's where that's my choice of platform with this brand that I built with 63,000 followers now. But now I'm on Twitter as well. And Twitter has got this whole world of building in public. So, I mean, when you were starting, it was, things were just coming about, I guess, more or less. People had this email list, they had this blog.
When I started my blog, MySpace didn't even exist yet. That's how long ago it was.
Well, there you go. But I mean, kudos to you to use your real name, because I know a lot of people use a pen name. And I mean, Tucker Max sounds like a pen name to me, but it's
no one believes my real name. They're like, let me see your driver's license. Like, there you go.
It's a great first name, full name. But yeah, I mean, the one story that I loved, obviously the title kind of gives it away, but the worst Tucker story ever is pretty hysterical. I just reread it right before this and got a couple of chuckles. But I mean, it's relatable. What I told my friends obviously that we're doing this, and I'm like, this guy is the Barstool before Barstool. He was doing this life of David Portnoy before it was even a thing. And it's funny because like I wonder, you could have, I don't know, the brand could have probably bursted into something far bigger than it already was, even though you created a 7-8 figure brand on your own.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt, man. Like College Humor and Barstool and all of those. In no way do I take credit for that, like for any of that. Like, but I could have built absolutely the equivalent, like no doubt. It's funny, man. I didn't, in a lot of reasons, because of my own issues and problems. Like I should have. Like it was right there, and a lot of people. I think I used to be this way. Oh well. blah 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 stole this, or blah 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 did this or caused this. Nah, man. Like, any lack of success I had or any missed opportunities, they were my fault. No
Mm,
one else's. No one else did anything. I know the guys who started the Chive. They're, like Leo and John Ressick. They're super nice guys, great dudes. I had every opportunity to start the Chive before them with a bigger audience, and I didn't. I didn't take anything away from the Ressicks. What they did is great. What they did is cool. They probably would have started the Chive even if I built a competitor, right?
right.
But like, I had every opportunity to do that, and my own ego and my own emotional issues got in my way.
Mm. Well, I mean, there's value in that, I'd say. Even I'm in my mid-20s. I've already I mean, there's always so many ideas you could take a pounce on, but then there's opportunity cost and there's the ideas of what you did take on. So, I mean,
Yep.
that's a good segue to what you're doing today with Scribe Media. But I do want to dive into this one in particular video that I watched of yours, one of your free videos about literally why you shouldn't be a New York Times bestseller, because it's just
Right.
such a grind. I mean, I was laughing the whole time, and when ultimately you were like, "Listen, it's an editorial decision. It's a human that is making this decision. For that
Yes.
exact reason, don't even put yourself through the stress, because that person probably hasn't even wrote a book." So, and that's the world we live in, right? The
Yes.
gatekeepers are always the ones that never are not the man in the arena. They're always the
That's
heckler.
why
They're
they
the
became gatekeepers, because they're afraid to be the man in the arena. You're
yeah,
exactly right.
yeah, I
Yes.
love it. So take us back to these media campaigns, these tons of podcasts, these appearances that you made working with Ryan and Tim Ferriss, and I know you have one other guy who hasn't really built his personal brand to that size of those other guys and yourself. His name's slipping my mind, unfortunately. But those days, like, was it wasted time? Was it worth it? Are you glad you went through it to learn it all?
Hold on. What do you mean working with Ryan and Tim? Ryan was my assistant.
As a team,
There was
not
it
so
wasn't
much
really a
alone.
team, man. Like, Ryan worked for me. He dropped out of college to
Okay.
well, he worked for me when he was in college. And then I got him a job. I helped him get a job at the Collective, which is a management agency in
Mm,
LA. He dropped out of college to work there, and then did work for me on the side and stuff. And I helped train him. And then Tim never worked for me. I helped Ryan. Like, Tim was looking for a book marketing person, and Ryan was doing my stuff. And so I'm like, Tim, use my guy. See, like, and so I helped Ryan do a lot of Tim stuff, not all of it, but
mhm.
definitely some of it. Like, another guy, Adam Bornstein's done a lot of Tim stuff and done a fantastic job. Most of the stuff that was done back then, I was doing, and Ryan was
Mhm.
definitely helping me. Ryan was absolutely involved and did a fantastic job. But it's not like he had some agent. Like, the agency he has, I started with him.
Okay.
Like, I helped him start, and it's done great. Like, he's gone on and done like fantastic stuff with American Apparel. He worked there, and then
Mhm.
we started Brass Check together, and I sold my shares to him, and he did cool stuff with it. But dude, I can tell you about all the tricks we pulled and the tactics and all that sort of stuff. Ryan writes about it pretty well in his book, Trust Me, I'm Lying.
Mhm.
But straight up, dude, here's the like, I'll tell you the God's honest truth. Most of that stuff either had no impact on sales or hurt sales.
Mm.
Vast majority of it. I mean, they're cool things to talk about, right?
Yeah.
If you want to study a really smart way to use media, around Ryan, the better thing to study is American Apparel.
Mhm.
And not Ryan didn't do a whole lot there. He effectuated Dove Charney's strategy. The way Dove did stuff was really, really smart, and Ryan kind of came on when they were already established and just helped make it better and scale it. But like, that they used media in a really smart way. The reason my book did well, there's really one reason: because the stories were funny and impactful, and people wanted to tell their friends. Every other thing I did, I don't think any of it moved the needle. Like, I wish I could be, because it's a way more fun story for me to
Yeah.
tell about, oh, I'm a marketing genius and I did this and this and this. Man, that's just not how books sell. And it was very seductive for me to tell that story for a while in my life, because it made me look smart and feel smart, right? But when I really looked back on it and was honest with myself, like, okay, so when the book came out, it went on the New York Times bestseller list for 2 weeks. And the only reason is because I had an email list of people. This is, back in 2006, before anyone really understood email, and like 70,000 people. And I'd like, hey, go buy my book. And a bunch of them did. Right. And then it went off the list, and it was off the list for 18 months. And then it came back on only because of word of mouth. Right. And I had a bunch of my stories on tuckermax.com, my website, up for free. So people could read it. They would laugh at it and be like, oh, this guy has a book, I'm going to go buy it. And then they would tell other people. That was every bit of my effective marketing. Because again, this is back before podcasts were big. I mean, like Rogan started his podcast when I was in LA, like in 08 or 09. So, and like he didn't have any listeners for the first couple of years, right? And so like I wouldn't go on podcasts promoting books. Like it was a pure word of mouth play. I wish I could tell you that all of our genius marketing tricks worked. They didn't.
Right. To back up a bit, just to the question I asked, it was I think it was more of a general question, just of everything you've done with those guys. Not necessarily saying you guys were a 3-man team.
Right.
But shareability, that's the biggest thing. And I think your blog format won that over. Obviously, it's hysterical. Obviously, it's polarizing to a extent of a different lifestyle than most experience, and it's public. So that's all. I love all that. I'm actually reading Perennial Seller right now. I'm about to wrap it up. I've never read Trust Me, I'm Lying yet, at least. But
that's the one where he details a lot of the marketing stunts. No, I did a bunch of stuff with Tim. He's a good friend still. I just saw him a couple weeks ago. He's done. Tim had pulled a lot of pretty good. I don't think he even pulled stunts. He was just really smart about the way he did it, right? But look, if you're out there wondering what are the marketing tricks, you're thinking about it wrong. It's almost never tricks. The better question to ask is, how do I really effectively meet an unmet need? If you can do that, then marketing's easy. Like 4-Hour Workweek didn't succeed because Tim pulled a bunch of good marketing stunts or tricks or strategies. Those only helped. Mm-hmm. He had an amazingly well-positioned book full of incredible knowledge. And you can tell by the fact like how many people credit that book with starting their entrepreneurial journey. Like tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Like like that book might have succeeded regardless of the marketing. It would have been slower, definitely. Now, though it's not guaranteed. Just because something's good doesn't mean it's going to sell a lot. There's tons of examples of the other way, but it's like I always tell people, it's easy to market a good book. It's impossible to market a bad book. And I'm defining good and bad only by, does this book meet someone's need? Is it providing value to them?
I literally just crossed a page in Perennial Seller where he talks about someone who spent literally like 70 million on a book promotion talking about some depression medicine, and it flopped. And it's like, and I'm in a similar space as you. I'm the new era social media digital age marketer, and books come my way, and obviously I got to get the business running, so I say yes a lot, but most of these books are
terrible.
Not very good. The cover's bad, the title's bad. Like, it's one thing for the contents to be bad, but the cover and the title need to at least be enticing. And for whatever reason, that's just not the case. And we're going to dive into this further in a bit, behind the fact that most authors, and I'm curious that you go through the same thing, they think they're going to publish with no email list, no blog, no digital presence, no credibility, and become the next Tony Robbins tomorrow. And luck. I'm like, Jim Quick is probably the best example. He was on the podcast. He was awesome. He became an instant bestseller on every list because he's been doing this for 20 years. He's been on stages. He's been doing all this. Yes, he might not be on social media for 20 years, but when he got on social media, he's had this network. So there needs to be some education there that I know you do a lot with your free videos. So people should go check that out. Speak about Ryan Holiday, last thing, and we're going to stop talking about him because this is not him on the show. But you're apparently the one that has introduced him to Stoicism. Is that correct? Are you the claim to fame to be the one?
I had to ask this. it's funny. He credits me with that. What's funny about that? It is true. I think I bought him a copy of
Meditations.
Meditations, or I told him to read it. Yeah, I can't remember. What's funny is I'm not a Stoic at all. I think it's a broken, dysfunctional philosophy, and I've talked about this with him and with him. Like, we're friends and we can disagree. I totally disagree with them about Stoicism. Like, don't get me wrong. There's great ideas in Stoicism,
Yeah.
but there's a reason it's a dead philosophy. There's a reason that no one practices it. And there's a reason that the people who are taking it up now are people who are afraid of their emotions and don't want to feel them and using it as a way to avoid them. Like, if you're looking for a philosophy to follow, the only two I've ever found that I thought really captured an effective, all-encompassing set of ideas, I would really go with Buddhism first, as an ethical system, as a philosophy, not necessarily as a religion,
Okay.
and then also Gnosticism, which I thought, which is similarly an ancient philosophy, probably as old, if not older, than Stoicism. Also, in a lot of ways, a dead religion, or a dead philosophy, but I think dead for very different reasons. I think, long story short, like, I probably shouldn't even go into it. It's a different thing, but no,
Yeah.
he credits me with that. But I didn't. I just like said, hey, you should read this book, or I got him the book. He's the one who took it and ran with it and made it his thing. Like, everything that's come off of that is all his
Right.
work. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a stoic in a sense that I'm emotionless. I lean into my fears. I will listen to one of your podcasts that you say that that's far more important than ignoring your fears, or your feelings rather. And but I do like the one aspect that you should be expecting more or less the worst, or at least just know, okay, this could all go to crash one day. So what am I going to do today to go prepare for an event like that? It's not so much being a pessimist or anything like that, but yeah, I agree. I mean, there's things to pick and choose from it. It's not a full way of life for me, at least.
If you're picking and choosing ideas, cool. But the thing to remember about Stoicism as a philosophy is it was developed by slaves to try and cope with a reality that they didn't want to have to actually face.
Mm,
Like, to condense it, that's a simplification
sure.
of a critique, but it's essentially true.
Okay. I love it. Okay, cool. Um, so you reinvented yourself, and you're now running Scribe Media. You've left the Fratire life behind. Um, what was that process like in the beginning? I know that you're no longer the CEO as well, because you've realized that you're just better in different capacities. So what was that whole life like? Just full transition, maybe having, I mean, well, you had 4 years, 5 years of some serious deep reflection and some help, which is tremendous. So I'd love to unpack that a bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I really, the last 3 years of my life have been. I mean, I'm still, like, I still do all kinds of stuff with the company. The company's doing amazing now. Right. We have a professional CEO who's a total badass, an amazing executive team. And they kind of call me when they need me, right? They're like, all right,
Mm,
Tucker, I need you to do this or solve this problem or whatever. And then I come in, I do it. And then I'm all kind of off on my island building new things, right? Within the context of the company, they're all kind of related, but I'm kind of over there. And then when things get ready, like, I built the guided author program, I built the book school, and then brought it over, and then it's like, then it becomes part of the company. It's how it works. Um, but overall, man, like, it's been, the last 6-7 years have been very different, dude. Working with a
mhm.
team, building a company, all that sort of stuff. It's not. I mean, writing a book is a very, for the most part, at least the way I did it myself, a very lonely, isolating thing, right? Whereas building a company, it's funny. I don't think building a company actually exists. I think what exists is building a team who does work together, like, work together on a specific project. And that's the thing I did not understand at all when this started. Now I kind of get it. It's like, oh, this is a whole different universe, right? This is a whole different world that I didn't understand at all. It's been very cool to see, especially working with, like, and of course it's like, oh, well, I understand how to write books. How hard can it be to scale a company?
Yeah.
Good Lord, dude. Like, it's 10
Different
times
animal.
harder. Oh my God, it's so much harder. And thank God I got a dude in a team who grew great at it, because I would have failed at that, man. Like, it's not my thing. Ugh. It's hard to
Mm.
organize a lot of people going the same direction and get all the logistics and everything arranged together properly. Man, that's so hard. It's shockingly hard.
Yeah, I'm flirting with it a bit now. I mean, I'm pretty much a one-man team with some freelancers and some help, and I know you guys use that resource as well, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely not an easy task, and unfortunately, social media depicts online business and entrepreneurship as a walk in the park.
I know, right?
So there's a lot of rude awakenings that will come across some people's lives.
It's true.
My next question, you've been asked before, I believe, the question of like, what's the 6-month framework to successfully promote a book after it's written? And you went along. I want to say this because one of your interviews, you pretty much give like a cookie cutter answer. Write the book, sit in your room with the lights off and like grind. But I love to get, maybe a more thorough answer, more or less, but really about the promotional side, the marketing side, because the book is the book. You got to get it in the people's hands. That's the hardest task, which no one really understands. Like I said about the Tony Robbins comparison.
Well, so here's the thing though, man. Like I tell this to people all the time. There is no such thing as a strategy for writing a book, or sorry, for marketing a book. There is no one size fits all strategy for it, right? Like if I asked you, how do I build an Instagram following? The niche I was in, some details might change, but I bet the core fundamentals of how to build an Instagram following would probably be the same across niches, right?
Yeah.
Not like that with books. Right. Exactly. It is not like that with books. Okay. I mean, I guess you can abstract it out to the point where you find a framework. But at that point, it's just a meta framework, right? And I'll tell you, I can tell you what the meta framework is. It's really simple, because almost all the marketing work you're going to do is before you start marketing the book. It's actually even before you write the book, it's in positioning the book. Like, because remember how you said a minute ago, you actually nailed it without even knowing you were nailing it. You're like, the title's terrible and the cover's terrible. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the book's dead. Like, great content book that are terrible titles do terrible, right? Yeah. So before you even start writing, you really need to understand what you're trying to accomplish with the book, who you're trying to reach, and why they are going to care. That's the most important thing. Why is anyone going to care about what's in this book? Once you really understand that, like if you're like, oh, I'm going to write a book on how people can make millions of dollars sitting in their underwear at home. Okay, a lot of people, let's say you can actually do that. A lot of people are going to care about that. I get it. Right. Whereas if the book's like, I'm going to tell people stories that I think are interesting about myself. I don't know. Probably people aren't going to care, right? Like I was able to pull that off. Some people can. But even then, it's like, I'm not writing stories about myself. I'm writing stories that are entertaining. They just happen to be about myself, right? So you've got to really, that's the key with marketing is, why is anyone going to care? And then, like what's an appealing title? What's an appealing subtitle? How do you communicate that visually? All of that sort of stuff, right? And once you nail that, then book marketing becomes easy, because then it's just a matter of, okay, well, who has the problem my book solves? How do I get my book in front of them? It's pretty simple. That's the meta analysis, is people who, my book helps people invest their money after they've had an exit. It helps entrepreneurs who've had an exit figure out their next steps and invest their money. Okay, cool. I know where those people are. I know who talks to those people. I know who who has that audience. I just now have to go pitch those people and show them how my ideas in my book, not my book, right? Because no one cares about your book. They only care about how your book can help them. And so it's like, okay, I'm gonna go on Gary Vaynerchuk's show, and I'm going to tell him I'm going to talk about the 3 things that every entrepreneur has to do the day they sell their business. And he's going to find that super interesting. And a bunch of people listening are going to be those people. And then you go from there. Right. But the problem is most people come at the other way. They think that book marketing is selling copies of dead trees. It's not. It's how do you help people solve problems that they have? The book is just the medium.
I love that. And something that just happened to me, I chase breakthroughs. I come from basketball, 6 years in college basketball under Danny Hurley. I'm now into this entrepreneurship world. I chase these breakthroughs. You work on something every single day to get that championship, to get that book launch, etc. And one of the ones that just came to me is gaining clarity. And it's exactly what you just said. Who's your reader? What are the 3 pillars that you want to accomplish? And what are they going to achieve afterwards? And again, I don't know why I keep bringing up perennial seller just because it's top of mind. But one of the things people always say is like, the reader is me. No, the reader is not you. I mean, it might be the 25-year-old young entrepreneur, like, okay, let's get detailed, but it's not Owen. That's not how it works. So I'm having tremendous clarity, growth in my own way with this brand and so forth. But I think that's to one word. If you had to pinpoint it, it's gaining clarity on what the purpose of your book is. So you nailed it.
For you. No, you're exact. For you. What is the book going to do for you? And then, but it's 3 things. Who do you have to attract to get that? And why are they going to care about what you have to say? It really is. It's all 3 of those. Now, clarity on each of those, totally. I'm with you, 100%. Once you get clear on that, it's almost like positioning a company or any brand. It's not fundamentally different, right? But people lose their, man, we see this. We've helped 2,000 authors write books. Like smart people who are fantastic marketers in their space come into books and they lose their fucking mind. Like they're like, oh, everyone wants to hear my life story. Probably not. And nothing against, like, don't get me wrong, there's some great memoirs. But like the point is not to talk about you, right? That's a diary. The point of a book is to meet the needs of the reader.
Yep.
Which then gets you what you want, right? Which is attention or clients or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's an indirect action, I think.
Yes, 100%.
I don't know why I mean, unless you're a super prolific person, like the first book that keeps coming to mind is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. That's a different story. He invented Nike, and even
okay, honestly, but hold on, that book's amazing.
Oh, it's fantastic!
Incredibly well written.
One of my favorite.
Right. So, how many other rich, famous, successful people have written memoirs that sucked? Most of them.
Yeah.
Right. So, what's the difference? I can tell you. His co-writer on that book is a guy named J.R. Moringer, who also co-wrote arguably the best sports memoir of all time, which is Open by Agassi.
Yeah.
J.R. Moringer is a fantastic memoirist, like absolutely fantastic. He wrote a book called The Tender Bar, which is like it's not that famous, not that many people know it, but people who like are book people all love that book.
I'll have to check it out.
So that's what Phil Knight, left to his own devices, probably would have written a shitty book. But no, seriously, and it's no insult to Phil. I would build a shitty shoe company, right? I don't know how to do it. JR knows how to interview people and then pull the truth out of them, right? And probably also he's picking people who are willing to be honest, right? Like Agassi was ready and willing to really tell the truth. Phil Knight was too, right? The only book I've ever co-written was with Tiffany Haddish. The Last Black Unicorn, massive bestseller, sold millions of copies. If you're reading that, you have no idea I was involved, right? Because I was able to get for Tiffany committed to being open and honest and really telling the truth, and she did, right? And so then all I really had to do was just get out of the way and put the truth on the page, right? Her truth on the page, not mine. So that's the way that when people don't buy memoirs to hear your story. They don't buy memoirs to learn about you. They buy memoirs to learn about themselves. But the way they learn about themselves is by you reflecting your truth at them. That's how memoirs sell, which is a little different than nonfiction. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it's a great way to put it. It's like almost you see yourself in them. Like I read Nike, the Shoe Dog, and I'm like, okay, I'm a kid from Jersey. I got a basketball background. I could do this. Like, what's the Japanese shoe today? Exactly. That's not. What's the foreign shoe that's selling? But yeah, it's inspiring.
True. Yeah. Well, you see what's possible. You see what honesty looks like. It makes you reflect on yourself because he's honest. Whereas Phil Knight could have written an autobiography that's like, look how awesome I am, right? Yeah. He could have written that, and you wouldn't reflect at all. You'd just be like, what an asshole, right? Like same person. If he was just bragging, it wouldn't have helped you at all.
True. That's awesome. I love it. One last question about like book marketing, traditional versus digital today. What's your take on it? Do you still see value in TV, paper press, digital, like
Yeah, of course.
I guess first is
Direct
social
mail.
media.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
direct mail. Yeah.
Direct mail is still huge. It's still a massive part. I still think, I'm not sure. I know like 5 years ago, direct mail was still like 60 or 70% of marketing ad spend.
Mm.
It's maybe down to 50% now. I don't
And is
know.
that paper or like email? Is that considered?
Direct mail. I mean, physical direct email
Okay,
is its own category.
got it.
Physical direct mail was like a huge percentage of ad spend. It still is. It's the only reason the post office still exists. The U.S. mail. Truly,
Yeah.
no, it's true. No, there's like a whole article about this. Whatever. Long story short, it is true. Honestly, man, there is no such thing as a right or wrong marketing method. There's only the right method for the right message to the right audience, right? So you got to align those. Like direct mail, if you're trying to sell, like if you're trying to sell, I don't know, like maybe supplements to old people, direct mail is amazing, right?
Yeah.
But if you're trying to sell like bathing suits to 25-year-olds, direct mail is a disaster.
Got it.
Like it totally depends on who you're trying to reach and for what product.
It comes back to that same message, knowing your audience, knowing your ideal reader, client, and the three benefits of what they love. So cool. I got like 4 or 5 pretty much one sentence questions or one answer questions or so, but or maybe 6. But go back to being 20 years old. What's your advice to your younger self with all that you've obtained today and your transformation?
Oh man, I don't know. Well, first off, my 25-year-old self was an idiot and wouldn't listen to anything. I'm 45. Wouldn't listen to anything my 45-year-old old self would tell him. Probably what I'd tell my 25-year-old self is buy a bunch of Bitcoin and then hide the key until you're in your 40s because you're stupid and you'll waste the money. I would have done something like that, or you'll sell it when it hits 1,000 and then
Well, don't forget the password.
Right, exactly. Hide because anything I would tell him, he wouldn't have listened. But if he would have listened, the thing I would have told him would be start looking inward as soon as you can. Like start that journey as early as possible.
Yeah, I did that. I had a big reflection period during when COVID first hit, when I left basketball and I got back home. I mean, that's more important today than ever because you're looking at all these false personas on social media and you don't even know what's right, who you are, what do you love, things like that. So, whether that was impactful when you were 25, 20 years ago or 2021, it's still super prevalent. So I love that. Any inspirations growing up or through your adult years? Was there someone else living a life like you were that you were modeling after? A Hugh Hefner type, or was it someone else?
No, I was never inspired by I mean, nothing against Hefner, but it was like, okay, dude, I mean, you could be a rich, famous guy banging a bunch of girls, cool, but I wasn't rich and famous. So who was an inspiration to me? Honestly, like this is going to sound a little nerdy, but my inspirations were almost always historical figures. Like I went to, like, I was always a big reader of the classics. So people like Hannibal Barca and like the Carthaginian general or Cyrus the Great or Genghis Khan. Man, you read the true story of Genghis Khan. Most people think he's like a bloody, horrific murderer. Read the book Genghis Khan and the Making of the Western World, and you'll be like, oh my God, I had no idea. Like those people were like my heroes. I can't think of a lot of modern. I'm probably looking back, like at 25, I probably thought, in fact, I'm sure I did. I thought Harrison Ford was amazing. Now at 45, I'm like, no, he's a douchebag actor, right? Like he's just an idiot actor. Yep. And but even then though, historical figures were definitely heroes of mine. And those are the ones who stayed with me. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Bit of a deeper question to make a bit of a turn. You're on your deathbed. You're looking back. What are you hoping to see? What are you hoping to be remembered by? Legacy question.
So I'll be honest. I don't really care about my legacy. That's not up to me. No, truly, it's not up to me, man.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like, but I have thought about what do I want my deathbed to be like, right? And the thing I always come back to is, I hope I'm surrounded by. I pray I outlive my wife and all my kids, which is probably a little selfish, but I really do. And I hope I'm surrounded by them and all my grandkids, all their kids, and everyone is so, so sad to see me go.
Mm.
Right? They're so happy I was there and happy about everything I brought. And they're so deeply sad to see me go. And I go with no resentments, nothing left unsaid, no issues unsolved, um, surrounded by the people I love deeply and are closest to me.
It's powerful. I think that's the right way to be. So we talked about a couple book recommendations, but I always ask, couple books or a book that you either find yourself rereading consistently, or it's always like the number one book you give to others.
So I can tell you what the number. So uh, I'm cheating a little bit. It is today, June 29th. I'm not sure when the podcast is going to come out but July 15th of this year, 2021.
Okay.
My company has a book. We're publishing a book called A Dose of Hope, which is
Okay.
about it's a parable about MDMA guided psychotherapy and MDMA assisted psychotherapy, and it's written by a guy named Dr. Dan Engel, and he paired up with a super famous female novelist. I know who it is. I'm not allowed to say, but
Sure.
she's like super famous, like not J.K. Rowling, but you would see her on a panel next to J.K. Rowling. Super famous.
Brene Brown.
No, Brene Brown's not a novelist.
Oh,
novelist.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. That's a good point. Got it.
She sold way more books than Brene Brown.
Sweet.
Because novelists do. They sell a lot of books. But anyway, so she did MDMA therapy a bunch with this guy or with somebody and changed her life. And she wrote a book about MDMA assisted psychotherapy, but like a parable, a story. And
Nice.
it's an amazing book that really does a great job kind of explaining what it's like. And because I wrote an article about my MDMA assisted psychotherapy, it's on, like, you just Google Tucker Max MDMA, it comes up, but it's hard to explain to people. And so like, I've already sent the PDF of this book to like 30 people. When it comes out, I might be thank God my company's doing it because I can get the books for cheaper. I might be sending hundreds of these books out. I think MDMA assisted psychotherapy and other psychedelic medicine is going to be the future.
Yeah.
And this book is one of the first things, it is the first thing I've ever read that really explains it in a layman's terms in a way that's like, oh, I totally get that. That makes complete sense.
I love that.
I'm
That's
really
awesome.
excited about it.
Super cool. Well, if you want to send me a copy, I'll be happy to grab one.
Awesome.
But that's I love parables too. I'm a big fan of Robin Sharma and all of his work, and he writes.
The book's very much like Robin Sharma style.
Okay,
Yes.
so that's similar to be. I want to write a book like that, but I've heard it doesn't sell that well. Actually, maybe quick take on you, but from you.
False.
Cool, because I want to do it.
It's very much a binary thing. It's like
Okay.
the ones that sell crazy, but they're
like
hard
the
to
Go
do.
Giver.
Right, Go Giver, Bob Berg, or all of John Gordon's books, like The Energy Bus, that guy.
Yeah.
All of Patrick Lencioni's books, all of Ken Blanchard's books. You actually look, 3 of the top 7 best-selling business books of all time are parables. I'm a big fan of parables. They're just hard to do right. You know, it's sort of like, it's very much like, it's like, I'm a food person, so it's sort of like it's like gnocchi, right? Either gnocchi is amazing or it's garbage. Same thing.
I'm half Italian, so I've had the best gnocchi in Italy.
You know, right?
And
then you go to some like Olive Garden, and it's like, what is this? This is rubber. What? This is garbage, right?
Too doughy or just not cooked right.
Exactly.
Cool. Last 2 questions. Do you have a personal mantra that you live by each day?
The thing, man, the light that guides me is sort of, my job here on earth is to do my work and then help others do theirs. So either I'm doing my work or I'm helping others.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then the last question, tied with the title of the podcast, what's your definition of extraordinary?
Man, it's such an seemingly easy question, but it's not. My definition of extraordinary is actually probably going to be not quite dictionary definition. It's a little different, but like someone who does the thing that seems so obviously correct, but so few people do. You know, like I think we live in a world now where so few people, I mean, like, think of the word literally, extraordinary, right?
Right. It's hysterical.
Right. I know, but like so few people, I feel like everyone knows the right thing to do in most places, most people, right? And so few people do it. It's always confused me, right? Like, not that I'm like always doing the right thing or perfect or any stretch, but I feel like so much of the success in my life has been almost like I'm either too dumb or too daft to know I'm not supposed to do that. I'm like, well, that's the right thing. Let's go do it. And it's like, that's basically all the success in my life is just that, right? Which turns out is extraordinary, but doesn't feel that way to me. It just seems like obviously the right thing to do.
Yeah, and I think I like to think I'm in this group, but it's like different thinkers. You know, it's the person who's a cog in the machine in the world, who's going through the motions of life, versus the person who goes almost against the status quo, who them taking that route, it seems normal to them.
Yeah.
Me leaving basketball and starting my own thing, it felt normal. I can't see myself doing something else. But to everyone else, they're like, dude, what are you doing? You're an idiot. Like, you're making way less money. Or actually, I'm making more because I was making pennies in basketball. But you're just, everything's reliant on you. And I'm like, dude, I can't do anything else. Like, this is what I have to do. So
Yeah.
it's interesting. But Tucker, this was awesome, man. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I think the listeners are going to love this. I'll share all the good work. And I got your one book, so I'll share the one book, but I'll also be sharing and being an advocate for Scribe Media and all the work you're doing there. And I'm excited for that. This book that's going to come out. That's not mentioned yet.
Awesome. Thanks, man.